Good evening and welcome to the Cabarrus County Board of Education's work session for Monday, August the 1st, 2022. I will call the meeting to order and we will begin with our opening ceremony 2.01 if everyone will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we will say welcome to our viewing audience that has joined us live stream, and we will begin with setting the agenda 3.01. May I have a motion that we actually will amend the agenda tonight, pulling policy number 6220 that was scheduled for first read, and with that correction, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Blackwell, a second by Ms. Carpenter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we will move to 4.01, and that is our board chair and superintendent comments. I will pass mine over to Dr. Kopicki for superintendent comments 4.02.
Thank you, Mrs. Grimsley. The first presentation this evening is going to be given by Ms. Leanne Havley. She's going to give us a presentation on the new social studies standards and some of the progress that our district has worked on over the last approximately year and a half or so. Leanne is going to give us kind of a background on the genesis of this particular item and get us up to date on our social studies standards. So, Leanne?
Give us just 1 minute. Leanne, try that other mic. Thank you. Give us just a minute. Okay, now try.
Seems good.
I think we're safe.
Hello? That's better, yeah. And they're supposed to be, keep talking? It seems to be working. Okay, we have a presentation too. So I was going to wait for that.
Are you good? Okay.
And I have the clicker. Okay, I think we're good. So like Dr. Kopicki said, my name is Leanne Havley. I'm the Curriculum Instruction Coordinator for Cabarrus County Schools. I want to thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm really excited to share with you what I consider to be really amazing and remarkable work that our teachers and facilitators have done over the past, really almost 3 years now in the social studies realm, but in the last year and a half, we've really dug into it and done a lot of amazing work around the new standards in our curriculum. So anytime the state adopts new standards, it doesn't matter what subject it is, they typically undergo about a 3-year process where they're going to write and review and revise the standards. They're going to go to public comment, and then they're eventually adopted by the state and the legislature. This year, February 4th, 2021, they officially adopted the state social studies standards, and this was actually a year delay because of COVID. And there was legislation that required us to change the standards. Most recent one was the Economic and Personal Finance, what I call EPF. That legislation that says all students who enter school in 2020 or 2021, 2020 and 2021 have to take EPF before they graduate. So we had to write that course. The other legislation that we're under when it comes to social studies standards is our Founding Principles Act, which is the American History and the Civic Literacy courses. So the state didn't actually release any supporting documents for us until July 15th of 2021. And because of that, we made the decision to only write the courses that we needed to have to meet the legislation for our freshmen. So we wrote EPF, we wrote world history, and we wrote civic literacy, and we postponed the writing of the other K-12 courses until we had the supporting documents from the state, which we now have. The graduation requirements, any freshmen, so there are rising juniors right now, have to take EPF, or Economics and Personal Finance, to graduate. All freshmen who entered high school in 2021 have to take the 4 new courses. And so another way to look at this, a visual representation, is it used to be that we had 4 courses: World History, American 1, American 2, and Civic Literacy, or Civics and Economics. Now we have 4 courses, which are World History, American History, the Civic Literacy, which you see has a very long title, and then Economics and Personal Finance. And then just another visual representation for this so you can see how we scaffold this out. Our rising freshmen in 2020-2021 would take Civic Literacy, which they did, or World, which they either did or will, the New American course this year, and then EPF, which used to be called PFL. This is an old picture. And then our rising sophomores, our rising juniors, and our rising seniors. So basically what this means is we are on point and on track and on time for the release of our social studies curriculum to meet the legislation and to meet the graduation requirements for all of our students. One of the things that I'm very passionate about and very proud of in Cabarrus County Schools is our commitment to developing a guaranteed, viable, and coherent local curriculum. So we started this process around 2010, right around the time we moved to the PLC process as well. We pull in teams of teachers and facilitators who unpack the standards, which I'll explain to you a little bit more in a moment. We're going to determine a scope and sequence for the work, which is basically a year-long map, and then we'll identify our transfer goals, our enduring understandings, essential questions, skills. We'll create aligned and rigorous assessments and performance tasks, and then we'll develop these aligned, relevant, engaging, and age-appropriate inquiries and resources that our teachers can use for instruction in the classroom. So one of the questions I get a lot when I talk about what I do for a living is, what are standards? What is curriculum and how are they different? So standards are determined by the state. These are the basic content or concepts that the state wants us to teach children in each course. Think of them as this 30,000-foot view, but the way they're presented, they're not in a real teachable format. And so for an example, this is what the state gives us for 7th grade history standard, and then also an American history, civics and government standard. So read the first one, 7H 1.1. Distinguish specific turning points on modern world history in terms of lasting impact. Now think about that for a second. That's awfully broad. In history, we have multiple turning points, and there's multiple impacts. So the work of our curriculum writers is to take this, the standards that the state gives us, and make it into something that's usable, teacher, student, and parent friendly. And so what is curriculum then? Well, curriculum is the segue between your standards and your instruction. Think of it as the roadmap for instruction. It's a logical and coherent framework that we use and our teachers use to guide their instruction daily over the course of a semester or a year, depending on what the course is. And it's a support for instruction through these meaningful, relevant, engaging, and aligned resources. On the flip side of this, though, curriculum is not a daily play-by-play for instruction. So think of it as the foundation and the walls of the house, and then the teachers add the paint to it, because the teachers are the artists who craft the way they're going to deliver the lesson. But they use the resources in the curriculum to do that. It's not a repository for unaligned or random resources. Everything that goes into our curriculum documents have been carefully vetted, read by our writers and facilitators. The resources that we purchase at a district level for K-5, 6-8, and 9-12 have gone through a pilot process and then a vetting process as well. And it's not simply a list of terms or content to teach. Why do we do this? Well, I believe we do this because, one, it empowers and engages our teachers in the process. They have ownership of this curriculum because they've helped write it, they've helped design it, and they were a part of it. which makes it meaningful to them. It creates agency. It also builds capacity in our teachers to lead and design and facilitate this work. So it creates a leadership opportunity for our teachers in their classroom. It gives us a chance to design a curriculum that we know is authentic, engaging, relevant, and appropriate for our students. And it allows us to maintain this local control and power over what our classroom instruction and teacher pedagogy looks like. Whereas if we purchased a packaged curriculum, it may or may not be completely aligned. And then the final step to this is it gives us the opportunity to embed resources about our community and state into our curriculum. And this, to me, is one of the most powerful things. I've recently been working with the librarian at the local library in the history and lore department. And she has found for me so many references to 1960s Concord in the newspaper articles and maps. I have pamphlets now from the American Revolution and Cabarrus natives who participated in it. And we're building these into text sets and into lessons and inquiries for our kids in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 8th, and American history. We right now have a text set in 3rd grade on Allen and Ella May Small with an additional activity on Warren C. Coleman. We have Norman McCullough's book coming for 8th grade on Warren C. Coleman. To me, this is the most powerful part about this because kids see their community and they see themselves and their local heroes in what they're learning. And that's really, I think, what makes it, you're going to hear me say authentic and relevant over and over again, but that's what makes it authentic and relevant for them. So for the process of this, teachers are going to apply as curriculum writers. Sometimes they're nominated by principals. They get targeted and specific professional learning throughout the entire process from me and my facilitators. We have facilitators who guide and support the work at each stage. We use a framework called Understanding by Design, which I'll explain in just a moment. And this process is ongoing and iterative, so it's important to know that it's never ending. We don't simply put a curriculum out there and say, here, this is it, go. We're constantly revising and honing it and making it better and taking it to that next level so it is the best that we can have for our teachers and our students. So like I said, we use backwards design or Understanding by Design, which was developed by Wiggins and McTighe. And it's simply a research-based framework for writing curriculum. So it starts at the high level where we're going to take the standards and the disciplinary skills, we'll identify desired results, determine our evidence, and then plan those learning experiences. Another way to look at this is we start where I like to say the 30,000-foot view with the transfer goal. This is an overarching idea that we want all kids to know and be able to do by the time they finish the course. We align that to a performance task. Then we write meaning and understandings, which we align to formative assessments and inquiries. And then we develop the acquisition piece, which are the skills and the content that the kids need to have. But everything starts here and we funnel it down. And so it's a very intentional process. The goal of social studies education in Cabarrus County is to develop historical thinking skills in students through inquiry. We want them reading, writing, thinking, and speaking like historians every day in every class and engaging with the subject matter. We want to provide them with aligned primary and secondary source documents that come from multiple perspectives and paint a robust and complete picture of history. And we want to create a space and a place for civil discourse and learning in the classroom that, again, is student-centered, authentic, relevant, and meaningful. These are the new courses that we'll be offering K-12 in Cabarrus County. I'm not going to read you the whole list, but these have been created. They're ready to be added to Canvas and launched. We will continue to build these courses, add resources, and bolster them and develop inquiries for the students and the teachers as time goes on. But our framework, our scope and sequence, and our stage one of this work is complete. A lot of people want to know, well, what changed from 2010 to 2021? And there were some major changes, most notably the addition of a K-12 inquiry strand, which develops students' historical thinking skills. And the goal is to put students in a position where they're going to evaluate and analyze topics in social studies, learn to ask compelling questions, learn to make claims and defend arguments, take informed action, and communicate about social studies in a high level, as a historian would. And these are all scaffolded to be grade level appropriate. So there's actually 4 grade bands for these inquiry strands. This is an example of the K2 inquiry strand. Every inquiry strand, K-12, has the same categories. And then the indicators become more complex, more nuanced, more rigorous as the kids age up and become more difficult and challenge them. Notice for developing claims and using evidence, we don't start that until the 3rd grade because it's not a grade level appropriate skill for kindergartners, 1st graders, and 2nd graders. But this creates a coherency and a vertical alignment, K-12, where we can start building inquiry skills in kindergarten, and kids will continue those skills until they graduate. Another element that created vertical alignment and coherency and consistency in the curriculum was the addition of 5 disciplinary strands. These are included in all K-12 courses. So before, American History and American History 2 only had history standards. Civics and Economics only had civics and economics standards. But our K-8 courses, they had government, culture, economics, geography. Now what we've done is we've made this more concise, and we've created this alignment. So again, kids have this stability as they move through K-12 social studies where we can build on prior knowledge and scaffold that from kindergarten to 12th grade. The only other really big change were the changes to courses. So under the new legislation, we had to make room for the economics and personal finance course. So they split civics and economics into 2. We now have civic literacy and economic and personal finance. And then in order to make room for that, we had to take American 1 and American 2, which we had separated out in 2010, and put them back together into one American history course. And I just want to end with this quote. It's from Grant Wiggins, the father of UBD and one of my personal educational heroes. But he says, "The point of school is not to get good at school, but to effectively parlay what we learned in school in other learning in life." And that is our goal with our social studies curriculum and in education. We don't teach kids what to think, we teach them how to think. And we want them to exit our buildings prepared to go out into the world with skills and communication ability so that they can become responsible and well-rounded citizens. And that's all I have for you. I'm open to questions now.
Okay, and just real quick, can you give us just an overview of the EPF course? What kind of skills will be in that class taken?
Yes.
Yeah.
So EPF, the Economics and Personal Finance, is a semester-long course, and it's focused very heavily on the personal finance. So there are 2 units in the beginning. One is macroeconomics, one is microeconomics, where we'll review overarching economic principles, supply and demand, opportunity costs, interest rates, things like that. And that's very quick. And then the rest of it, they're really going to start digging into things like consumerism, planning for the future, spending and saving, paying taxes, applying for loans or college scholarships, credit cards, all of that. So it's really specific to personal financial literacy so that when they leave school, they understand when we say to them, you can get a credit card in college because they're giving you a free t-shirt, but be wary, right, of the 26% APR interest rate and how damaging that can be to you. So that's the goal of it, is to prepare students to be financially responsible when they leave college or high school and go to college or into the workforce.
So we get a lot of questions about where do they learn how to balance checkbooks, and that.
This would be a part of that.
Okay, great.
I wouldn't say that there's an activity specifically about checkbooks, but there is an activity in there about your bank accounts and saving and how you keep up with it and how you monitor it, being safe online. That's all in there.
Great. All right, I'm going to open up for discussion, and I'll begin with Ms. Sandage.
I was just over here gloating in the likelihood of my kid being able to learn about checkbooks at school and not from me. I mean that's a good way to segue what I would be teaching them at home. They've got this, how you say, 30-foot view of, hey, this is what it looks like, and I can teach them the ins and outs of it, so that's great. I'm just going to be blunt here, and I hope you can respect that, because I get a lot of feedback, and I hear a lot of issues in the community about social studies, and I'm going to just say it. Is this CRT?
No.
Okay, can you help me understand why you say no so diligently?
Yes, so we do not teach critical race theory in Cabarrus County schools. Critical race theory is also not in the state standards. It is not in the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. Critical race theory is something that was developed in the 70s and 80s as a study of systems, complex systems that lead to inequity in different situations. It's not about individuals. It's not about people. And what it asks, and when people who engage in that and study that, what they're looking into is, why does inequality exist? Where does it exist? And then how can we fight that and change that so that we can create more equitable spaces? So take, for example, in the 1930s, banks began drawing lines in districts in neighborhoods because they didn't want to have to give loans to the poor neighborhoods. It created inequity. And in some cases, those lines still exist. Think about gerrymandering. Those lines, those political districts still exist. And today we're talking about, well, how do we redistrict to make voting more equitable and fair? So it's about looking at systems that are in place that most people probably aren't even are aware in place because it's legal and judicial precedent. It's not about looking at an individual and making a blanket statement or accusing them of something. It's about looking at things that are kind of relics of bygone eras, from slavery to segregation to Jim Crow and the end of the civil rights movement, and then looking at that and saying, okay, we've come this far. Now what do we need to do to even move further? And they identify the system, and then they work within the system from a legal and political perspective to create equitable spaces and create equity where there wasn't before. And what we do when we teach history is we're like survey courses. So when we teach the civil rights, people could argue and say, well, that's critical race theory. But the way we teach civil rights is we look at it from the perspective of what was it? Who were the activists and the heroes? How do we celebrate it? What were the changes that were made and the legislation that came out of it? And so it's a very different style of study. Does that make sense? It's a hard concept to explain.
I just wanted to give you an opportunity because we will get a lot of questions about this undoubtedly. And this is just me. I can't speak for the rest of folks, but I think that this is a good opportunity for us to clarify what's being taught in our schools when we're saying we got new social studies curriculum come. Oh, what does that look like? You've done a great job of articulating that, and I appreciate it, but I just wanted you to help us to clarify.
Yes, critical race theory is not in our standards, and it is not in our curriculum.
Okay, and if we have questions about something that is taught by a teacher to our kids, where are we going with that? Where do we, parents?
I'm going to hand this over to either Dr. Kapicki or Sarah.
So it's a very good question. So what I would say is your first step is always to call the principal of the school. And if there's further discussion needed, the principal then would guide you along the lines of the curriculum instruction folks or our chief academic officer or one of our instructional specialists to clarify some things as Ms. Havley did this evening. But our first step would always be the principal first.
Again, I'm going to thank you for this presentation. It was great. I really truly like to see the energy in your voice. It looks like you enjoy this, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do. I'm lucky. I actually love what I do, and I love my job. And this is fun. It's all for kids. So.
The other thing I would say too to that, Ms. Sanders, we encourage people to reach out to our principals so we can clarify and answer the questions. So we would welcome those questions, and any chance we get to further educate people as to what we're actually doing in the classroom, what the standards are, what our curriculum says, is always helpful. So we do encourage that.
And anytime you have a question, I'm an open book. Anytime you have a question about curriculum, reach out to me. You can tell I love to talk about it.
Right. I just wanted to hit this dead on. That's all. I appreciate it.
I
You
appreciate
answered.
that because it's definitely a hot topic right now. So,
Mr. Walter?
Yeah, I appreciate the presentation too. I've learned quite a bit. Question I had related to some of the, I guess the standards, the state has an assessment, right? So they require all kids throughout the whole state to take the same assessment test, right?
there are actually no assessments at the state level for any social studies course.
Okay. Thanks.
So we create final exams. We have a test bank right now. we're pushing our curriculum to be, especially for social studies, to be more inquiry and performance based. And so rather than an end of the year cumulative final that would teach only and check only retention and rote memorization of content, we're looking more towards reading and writing and responding and analyzing documents as final assessments and all of our assessment pieces as
So
well.
how are we comparing our students to the rest of the state? Is that through grades or is that through,
Well, there's no state comparison for social studies.
there's no state comparison at all? So we can't say our kids are learning
No.
better than some other districts. Okay,
Not in that
social
content
studies.
area.
Yeah.
Nope.
great, thank you.
Mr. Furr?
Once again, thanks for your presentation, but, and I like the fact that you talked about the local history, going back to the library and doing the research. Who determines that? I mean, you mentioned Mr. and Miss Small, Warren C. Coleman, which are all great and need to be there, but who makes that decision to put, I mean, is Charlie Cannon in there? Is Sheriff J.B. Roberts, which was a war hero and the sheriff for 40 years, are they in there?
So we're still in the process of building. We let our writers do the research around. So we have something in there with the local heroes. We have Dale Earnhardt, we have Michael Jordan, and we're still doing the research around other local heroes. I just got 2 great books that someone lent me that have even more famous Concordians in it, and we'll continue to build it. But the decision is made at the local level around teachers, and we choose the resources, and then we write those. And as we continue to go forward, and we're able to do more research, then we'll make sure that we're including more and more people in this.
Yeah, just let me know when you want to interview me.
Absolutely.
And I would,
Anytime.
yeah, and I would say to that, we're always open to feedback, right? I think that's the one beautiful thing about us creating our own curriculum is that we get emails constantly. Hey, have you considered this? And I will say we take that feedback and we go back to our curriculum writers and say, hey, have you seen this resource? Have you seen this text set? Can we consider adding this and incorporating it? And that's the beautiful thing about creating your own curriculum. We can do those things and actually do so quite rapidly most times. So.
Thank you for handling that statement so professionally. You know, there's one on every board.
But I just want to make sure we don't leave. I was just picking,
But no, I
people
know
out.
we want a holistic and robust picture of history in Cabarrus County, the state of North Carolina, the United States, and the world. And so it becomes, because there is so much, it becomes a situation where you have to start really figuring out what do you include. I don't want to say what do you leave out because I don't feel like we're leaving things out. But one of the things that is very important to me as a writer for curriculum and kind of coordinating this and holding this is that all voices and perspectives are heard. And that includes everybody. This takes a village. I unilaterally do not do this work or make decisions on this work, and I can't. I can stand before you today and talk about it, but I cannot take credit for it. And it's the work of my facilitators and my writers who really, they're the ones who we should be thanking. And I'm open to anything. So if you have people that you'd love included, one of the things that we run into, which is what led me to the library in the first place, is resources are hard to find on local people. But I've been working with Mark Plemons as well at the Independent Tribune. He's been fantastic, giving me access to PDF newspaper articles that he said you can use and not worry about copyright. And that has opened up a whole new world for us. And we're working with that. But remember, this is still, I don't want to say in its infancy, but we still have miles to go before we sleep. So if you have people you'd like to see included, just send me an email and I'll start researching and working on that.
Ms. Blackwell.
First, I'm just going to say that if Dale Earnhardt and Michael Jordan are included in this, I certainly think that Tim Furr should be also. But I will digress. So I definitely wanted to ask, and Sarah, if you don't mind stepping up back to the podium. So Sarah and I, and Holly as well, had a meeting about the 1776 curriculum. Are you familiar with
Yes.
the 1776
Very much so.
curriculum? And potentially doing a crosswalk to see what pieces of that curriculum could we pull that would meet with our state requirements. And I just didn't know where we were on that, and if you could
Absolutely.
speak to it.
Yeah,
Yes.
you wanna update
So I have the curriculum. I'm very familiar with it. I enjoy doing research, and so when the social studies standard dropped, we looked at all sorts of different curriculum and resources. I'm currently waiting to hear back from them about their fair use policies. There are definitely resources in there that we can use, especially around the founding documents and founding fathers. I've also given it to one of my facilitators who's working on American history with me right now, and he is looking at it and because it is a 24,060 page document. So he and I are carefully picking it apart and looking at it. But yes, we are in the process right now of reviewing it, and Sarah and I had met and talked about it, and we were looking at probably like October when I'll have time to really dig into it, because it is a lot. And I'm waiting to hear from them too. I want to make sure, since we're not using it in its entirety, that they're going to allow me to pull elements out and also put them in our curriculum and in our Google Docs, because sometimes that changes copyright.
Okay.
And then if not, I can work with them as well on, okay, well then what can we do? What are some workarounds?
Sarah, do you mind kind of explaining about kind of what we had talked about in the meeting,
Sure.
how, this, because it's a national curriculum
question.
and our state has certain requirements, that we actually meet some of those requirements already. So why we would take parts of that curriculum to implement
Excellent
it where
question.
pieces are missing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. So basically how I explain it is anything that's going to be a national curriculum is going to be open source, meaning that if we had national standards, it would be really easy to take a curriculum like that and adopt it. But the reality is, obviously, we must teach the standards that our legislators approve for whatever that given situation. So for example, I could give you one situation in which you may look at that specific open source curriculum and you have a lesson in kindergarten, but it isn't aligned to our kindergarten standards. It's actually aligned to a first or second grade standard. So we can't just kind of take a huge package curriculum that's open source at a national level and say, okay, we're going to plug and play and use this resource. The second thing I think Leanne kind of shared is that we want to be able to make it relevant for our students. We want to incorporate the community perspective, which is also part of the standards, which an open source national curriculum would not allow us to do. With that being said, though, if we have permissions to be able to say, this kindergarten lesson works really well in first grade for this standard, we're going to plug it in here, we certainly can do so, but obviously we have to work with the open source folks to make sure that that's permissible and that we're allowed to do that.
So I'll have to work with Hillsdale and make sure we have permissions. Otherwise, we'll get a cease and desist letter, which
Nobody
We don't
wants
want
to
to.
get that. Well, so thank you. Thank you for meeting with us, Sarah, about that. And definitely thank y'all for checking into that for us too, because I think that would be fantastic if we could do that. I know that with these social studies standards, I think that one of the things that I've heard and some of my own concerns is that we make sure that, we take pride in what our country stands for and what we have done. No country is ever perfect in anything, but we want our children to be proud of where they are and where they come from. So I really want to make sure that is implemented into these social studies standards for sure. I love the aspect of having the things that are local and that are important to us because that does make it very relevant to them. So thank you all for checking into that. I really do appreciate it.
Ms. Carpenter?
Again, I thank you greatly for your presentation, and I have done extensive studies on our local heritage, on the Union Street corridor, on the especially way back, because I was very involved in a historical tour, and especially the start of Concord. And so and the Lower Library, I got a lot of information, and I actually got to interview Miss Lore. I had to, when we had the bicentennial, I had to find the oldest person in Concord, and at that time it was Miss Lore, and I got to interview her, and she was fantastic. And so I have and of course I have to document everything, and I have to make sure my facts are straight. And so I made sure I had documentation on everything. So I happen to have a lot of information, some books, and some things that I would be more than happy to share with you. And I've got 2 or 3, of course, on local individuals, especially a lot of the older ones, the barriers. I mean, a lot of individuals, and I will be more than happy to share it with y'all if we can use that.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you.
And give you the information that I've got. And I, not only from our local library, but I went to Raleigh, went a lot of different places, of course, to gather information. And again, I checked, double checked, triple checked to make sure that the facts that I had were correct. And I would love to share what I have.
I'd love to read it.
Again, I tried to get as much local flavor and information as I could get, because when I did my tours and everything, that was what I wanted to have. And again, the more information I could have, the better. And again, I've got at least 2 or 3 books, and it's all about our local legends. And it didn't have Tim Fur in it. Now, it did have Carolyn Carpenter in it, though. But this one did have a lot of our local individuals, and like I say, some of them dated way back, and it was just so interesting to hear about all of the individuals that had come to Cabarrus County. But I'd be more than happy to share that with you and what information you could use. That would be great. And I think the more I have to say what Laura had said. You know, I am so proud of the heritage and the parts that we played in Cabarrus County. The first gold rush. I mean,
we have a lesson.
We
have a lesson on Reed Gold Mine.
I mean, what we did in Cabarrus County really made a difference, and I am so proud of that. And what we can do for our children, and what difference we made in starting this country. I mean, I'm proud. So I will get that stuff together for you.
Yes, please do, because Concord has a really robust and interesting history. And one of the things that we're working on right now is for individual schools that are named after people like Carl A. Fur. I found a book in the library that has information on Carl A. Fur and others. And so then how do we create those lessons that are specific just for the school so the kids know who their school's named after? So we're working on this. Any information I can have will just make it that much stronger.
And one last comment. I'm just so glad on the financial thing. For all my years, what have I been saying? Teach our children about finance. Make sure they can balance this checkbook. So I'm just so tickle pink about that. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Adcock. I enjoyed the presentation, and I've been on the CNI committee for the last 2 years. So I know when you talk about vetting, and there's a lot of transparency in that process, and I've actually been able to be a part of that where there's a feedback loop, and negative or positive feedback is given if anybody sees something they don't like. So I think the process is great. It's very transparent, and our community and our parents should feel comfortable in what we teach in our schools.
Thank you.
So we'll give you the test. CNI stands for what? I want you to tell everybody.
Yes, and we're actually now the Academic Services Department.
Thank you. That was a test. So final question. You addressed CRT, now address SEL.
Social and emotional learning?
That we discussed, that you'll address that piece of it?
Yes. So social and emotional learning is not CRT. They are 2 very different elements. And I think because there's been so much about CRT that sometimes we bandy that term around a lot, and then we lump things in with it that don't belong with it. Social emotional learning is the idea that we're creating an intentional space for students to learn skills that, for lack of a better term, make them human beings. So how do you communicate? If you're upset about something and you're in kindergarten and Billy takes your toy, most kindergartners, their reaction is going to be to hit Billy. How do we work within that to make them understand there's a way that you can share your emotions, use your words, communicate what you need, and advocate for yourself? It's about anti-bullying. So teaching kids things like empathy and compassion and understanding. It's about decision making, making good decisions, or knowing, especially like in the upper grades, if you're dating someone who's not treating you well, where can you get help for that? Who can you talk to? How do you recognize elements of toxic relationships and make decisions to protect yourself as an individual? So it's about this mental well-being and wellness. Does that make sense?
It does. I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure that we
Yeah.
address that because it is interconnected with CRT a lot, and we get a lot of questions. As
And
we
and
discussed,
I don't understand why, but
right. I think people really do not understand
Yeah.
sometimes, and we really do need to discuss those things here, while we're at a public meeting, so people, that send us emails get their questions answered, and, and I'm sure we'll have additional tonight, and we will forward those to you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Anything else, board members, for Leanne? Okay, thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you so
Kopicki,
much for
I'll
having
turn
me.
it back over to you.
I'm sorry. I do.
I'm back.
I did, but so just to be clear, and maybe for me, we can suggest curriculum to you as board members. Is that open to any and everybody that has? I just want to make sure we understand what we're saying in here.
Yeah.
Because we've got
So-
board members that have suggested things to you.
Right.
And then is that open to everybody?
So I think there's a bit of complexity and nuance to that we should unpack. You're not really suggesting curriculum, because the curriculum is our framework. But what you could certainly suggest to us would be the content or people like that. So yes, if you think there's something that happened in Concord, North Carolina that we should be teaching kids, I want to hear it.
Okay, and how do we do that?
Well, you can just email me.
Okay.
That's the easiest way. I would also say our curriculum and instruction committee is a tremendous asset to that. So we will be beginning those meetings shortly, and certainly those are a great vehicle from a committee perspective in terms of, are we missing something? Is there a resource that may be of concern? Is there an additional resource that we may want to add? Certainly, I firmly believe that we want all community stakeholder engagement in this process.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, this absolutely only works if parents, teachers, students, everybody's engaged.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
so,
Thank you for being
let
with
me
us
know.
tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Kopicki.
Sure. I'm going to just clarify real quick. Leanne, thank you very much for that presentation. That was very well done. The social emotional learning that seems to at times become contentious, I just want people to understand it's a systemic social and emotional learning is a piece of the multi-tiered system support that we have in place. And it basically includes a school-wide, district-wide integration to promote a positive school climate. There are 5 competencies that we focus on, and they are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And the focus is on those 5 competency areas, and they're all built into our MTSS system, which is the multi-tiered support system that all schools, not just in North Carolina, but across the nation are adapting and putting into their systems to, again, focus on that positive school climate that is part of the MTSS system. So when we talk about social emotional learning, I understand sometimes that's a buzzword that makes people uncomfortable. It has nothing to do with CRT. It has everything to do with the MTSS systems, building the positive building the positive school climate, and again, working on those 5 competency areas, which again are responsible decision making, relationship skills, social awareness, self-management, and self-awareness. And that information, you can look that up. That's on the North Carolina DPI website for anyone that wants to peruse that further and get more detailed information. But that's the requirements that we are being held to with DPI, and that's what we are following. So we're more focused on those 5 competencies, building that into our MTSS system, and promoting a positive school climate environment. So Leanne, thank you very much for your help on that. I do appreciate it. Next, I'm going to ask Mr. Taylor and Mr. LeGrand if you would approach the podium, please. I'd like Mr. LeGrand first to just update the board and the public on the Roberta Road Middle School, and just give us an update as to where we are with that and the excitement behind that as we get ready to open school there. If you can give us an update on that. And then Mr. Taylor is going to talk to us and update us on any of the building projects that he and his team from facilities is working on, especially the school vestibules, and give us an update as to the status of those. Mr. LeGrand?
Thank you, Dr. Kopicki. Good evening, board. We're very, very proud of our Roberta Road Middle School facility that's going to be opening on August the 29th to our students. If you haven't had a chance to come out and take a look at that state-of-the-art facility yet, it's well worth your time. Our construction department has done a phenomenal job coordinating this. It is something that Cabarrus County students can be really, really proud of. There's going to be a dedication ceremony on August the 21st. And that'll be at 2 o'clock, and we're going to send out invitations on that, and we want the community to come out and take a look and see the awesome work that's been done, and more importantly, the learning environment that our students are going to be stepping into. It's a middle school I wish I could have gone to, back when I was a young guy, but it's a really, really impressive place, and I can't wait to see it in action.
And we will be opening on time, correct?
It will be open on time. Furniture's in there. The building is complete. Just doing a little item here and there, punch list items, but we'll be ready to rock and roll 4 weeks from today.
Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. Carolyn?
What about the roundabout? What's going on with it? Is it going to be complete, or where are we going to be with it?
From what I understand, we're well on pace to have that completed prior to the first week of school, probably the week prior to the week before school. So that's the latest on that. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, weather, etc., it shouldn't be an issue at all.
Thank you, Mr. LeGrand.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Good evening, board. So to update you on the security vestibules, I know everyone's interested in those. I'm getting a lot of questions on them. The security vestibules at J. Robinson High School, Hickory Ridge High School should be completed by August 31st. The vestibule at Northwest Cabarrus Middle should be completed shortly before that. All we're waiting on materials to come in. Once the materials are in, construction has actually started on the cabinetry for the vestibules at J. Rob and Hickory Ridge High. They're moving right on along. I expect that they're going to be really nice vestibules. The architects came up with some really great designs. C.C. Griffin will be completed by Christmas. We are ordering the materials for the doors now, and we are working out some issues with the fire marshal and getting some permissions so that we can proceed with that.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, thank you. And before we move on to attorney comments, I think it's a good time to welcome our teacher liaison to the dais and ask, would you like to introduce yourself and just give us a little brief information to the viewing audience?
Hello, I'm Angie McLean, kindergarten teacher from Beverly Hills STEM Elementary School, and will be serving as the district teacher of the year for this school year. Super excited to be here. I live in Kannapolis, have 4 children, and just excited to continue to, excited. That's all I can say.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, 4.03, attorney comments. Mr. White, Mr. Ogle, anything? Nothing? Okay. We will move to report section 5.01. We will begin with the committee reports. I'll start with Ms. Adcock.
Thank you.
I just wanted to announce the 5 students that have been selected for the board student interns for 2022 and 2023. Allie Boger, she's a senior at Hickory Ridge. Mary Lou, who is a senior at Northwest Cabarrus High School. Vandana Petapali, who is a senior at Coxmill High School. Nielera Packrick, which is a senior at Concord High School, and then Kendall Lewis, who is a junior at Hickory Ridge High School. And we'll be starting the first week of September, and we'll have information going out to those students. So congratulations to them.
Ms. Carpenter, anything?
Yes, thank you very much. Have a couple things. First of all, I have one thing that some continuous education. I'll tell you about this, and then next month I've got a couple other things, but I'll wait till I get the information on that. But we did have a thing that we attended that was given by the Exceptional Children's Assistance Center over at McGill's church, and Jonathan was there with us, and it was on exceptional children's I'm losing my words there.
It was a professional development session for our exceptional children's department that you attended with
and
Mr.
it was
Vogel.
talking about when you do EC, when you have a conference with it, and we had parents, we had the teachers, and we had our attorneys, and it was talking about when you do EC conference and the best way to do it, and then what problems you saw, and it was an afternoon, and it was very, very good. I mean, I got a lot out of it, and also they talked about other things, about the terminology we see, what a 504 is, so what's the difference between a 504, and it was just, we really got a lot about, and about collaboration, about the things that you can do to maybe make things better, and I just got a lot out of it. And so
if I may just stop you for a minute, I apologize for interrupting, but I just want to commend Angela Fitzwater and Dr. Roth for leading that and bringing that opportunity available to everyone to partake in that. So I appreciate you bringing notice of that this evening. So thank you.
But it was very good, and we really enjoyed it. It was a great afternoon to spend with us. Also, I would like to bring to the attention that the WSOC-TV 9 School Tools Project is underway this month, and it benefits the students and staff of Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools. The Concord Afton Sunset Rotary Club is the nonprofit sponsor for the 5th year, and I'm happy to say that I have assisted the 9 School Tool Drive each of these years as Mr. Walters. Over the first 4 years, over 1,800 supply items have been collected and delivered to the schools. We have a great start this year with nearly 20,000 supply items already collected. Staples customers may purchase a $5 pre-packed box of 19 supplies and put it in the 9 school tool barrels at the Carolina Mall store. Other school supply donations are welcome there as well. There are collection barrels or boxes at aerial locations throughout August the 15th, including Ashley Home Store in Afton Ridge. Afton Village Business includes West Cabarrus Y, Churn Buddy's Ice Cream and Coffee, and the Wine Room. At local churches, St. James Catholic and Gilwood Presbyterian, Team Honeycutt / Allen Realtors. The drive and drop-off supply collection will be held this year on Saturday, August the 13th in Afton Village or Village Drive near the gazebo. That will be 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. buy a few items, and drive by to give the donations to one of the Rotarians. Money donations will be accepted. For more information, visit the Facebook of Cabarrus County 9 School Tools. Email Cabarrus 9 School Tools at gmail.com or look for an Amazon custom gift list for 9 School Tools. And 2, we are doing, and we started it last year, we're doing nurses' bags that we give to the nurses, and we've got everything for those nurses' bags except 27 hand sanitizers, you know, the squeeze bottles. So if anybody wants to donate 27 bottles of the hand sanitizers so we can get those nurses' bags, please contact me. I'll come pick them up, but that's the only thing we need for those nurses' bags. But we do that for our nurses. They do so much, and also, you know, we do those school supplies, so, you know, it helps out these teachers. So many of these teachers, you know how much they give money for the, you know, supplies and pay for everything, and these school supplies do help. So please do these supplies so we can get them out to these schools and everything, and we appreciate that. And then the last thing I've got, again, I want to mention about the county fair. We are going to have the fair. It's going to be open September the 9th through the 17th. Deadline to get entries in if you want to enter things. The deadline is going to be August the 24th at 12 p.m. You can call if you can get entries in before then at 704-920-3992. They'll help you get those entries in. Drop off of those entries will be September the 6th from 1 to 6, September the 7th from 1 to 6, and then you can pick up the items on September the 18th from 11 to 3. Please go enjoy yourself at the fair, and we do appreciate it. And thank you so much. Did my my civic
You did great.
duties there. Thank you.
Ms. Blackwell.
So I was just going to give a quick update on the Literature and Supplemental Material Committee. We did have our last meeting was on, not last meeting, but the last meeting was on July the 12th at R. Brown McAllister, and we were able to finish up some of the changes that we wanted to see to policies 3200 and 3210, which thankfully happened to be on our agenda tonight to go over as well. Those were set forth by the policy committee for us to start looking over for this evening. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that was part of that supplemental materials committee. And we do not have our next meeting yet, but that is just because we are waiting to see where we go from here with these policies. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and this might be a good time, and Mr. White, I hate to put you on the spot, but there was some statements made about what actually does the committee do, what kind of authority do they have, you know, when it comes to, I think there's some stuff out there about banning books and the different types of actions this committee can or can't take. Would you mind clarifying?
I can do that now. I can do it when the policies are brought up, but I can certainly do that now. What happens is the Literature Committee was a committee that was formed as a result of this board's decision to have more parental involvement or address the parental concerns. So that committee came together and discussed 3200 and 3210, which Mrs. Blackwell was the chair of that committee. And what the committee did was they looked over those two policies and came up with a little bit streamlined, took some of the administrative guidelines and put it into the policy, but allowed the opportunity for parents, guardians that have concerns about books, concerns about materials to be reviewed and to be reconsidered is what it is. So there's actually a process for each one of the schools to have a reconsideration committee if it's a particular instructional material in that school. But if it's district-wide, then Dr. Kopicki or the superintendent would have a reconsideration committee, so that let's use myself as an example, if I had a concern about a book, and I've always been using The Grapes of Wrath, not for any particular reason, but that's the one that always pops in my mind. East of Eden would also be another good one. But if a parent had a concern about Grapes of Wrath, they would be able, or a guardian, they would be able to fill out the form and request reconsideration as it relates to that book. And the request needs to be detailed as to what are your concerns about the book, what are your thoughts about the book, do you have any other suggestions that can teach the same topic, what do you think the teacher is trying to discuss or trying to teach from that book to get it back to, or not to get back to, but to recognize, like you heard earlier tonight, the North Carolina standard course of study. North Carolina standard course of study is that this board, this administration, and I believe all the teachers this is what we're looking for. This is what we're trying to address. So that's what the request is from. If it's going to be reconsidered, what is going on? What are you looking for? Is there a different way? Is there a different material, or what is it that would be considered? Now, then the committee would have the rubric to be able to go by the rubric, and they would read the book in its entirety to make the decision is, does this teach what the teacher is wanting to teach, or how the teacher is wanting to do, as it gets back to the North Carolina course of study. So everything that the committee has done was consistent with what this board is teach our children what we are required to teach them, but also challenge them. And if there is a particular material that is objectionable, then it can be reviewed and it can be discussed. Now, it also sets out, this committee was is that if the decision is made that is contrary to the parent, how does the appeal process? That would go to the superintendent. And if it's upheld again, could it go to this board, and this board would be able to look at it as well. Now, on the flip side of it is, do you get your child out of the semester, out of the study lesson, out of whatever he or she's supposed to be learning? And the answer would be no. They still have to learn it, but they would be learning it from a different topic. Is there another material that can teach the same thing that parent may not find as objectionable? So to draw it back, this board asked the literature committee to see what can be done about allowing a parent to have the involvement. What does the parent raise in concern, and how can that be addressed? And that's what this committee came up with 3200 and 3210. It is not a way to go in surreptitiously and pull books off the shelf that somebody does not like. That is not what happened. And in fact, one of the committee came up is that material would stay on the shelf. So one thing to understand is that would stay on the shelf, but the committee would need to look at it, so they would need to be able to read it from somewhere else. So they would, we would then need to find the resources to find those books or that material from another school or another avenue, just to be able to review it, to make that call. But it's not getting removed from that school library or from that area. Does that answer questions?
If you'd humor me for a minute, Mr. White. Ms. Burns, how many people are on the actual policy committee, roughly? How many people sit on that committee?
About 25.
Right. So just to clarify some of that information that you did, so we had the literature review committee that reviewed the policy publicly.
Yes,
all
sir.
those meetings were publicly with that committee. That policy then went to our regular policy committee, of which 25 independent people from this organization sit. Ms. Burns is on that. I believe there are two of our board members sit on that, and then there are various teachers and employees within the district that sit on that. So I just say that to point out that it has been very well vetted and has been very transparent, if you will. And to be honest with you, there were no major changes. I thought it was actually very good discussion to the process, and it gave us all a better understanding of that process, and was well led by Ms. Blackwell and Mr. White. So thank you. Thank you, Ms. Burns.
There was, actually, piggybacking on what Dr. Kapicki said, is there was 3 changes from the literature committee to the policy committee, and it was moving one paragraph up above, because the idea is that this is what we want to make certain. It's like the preamble. This is what we're really wanting everybody to know, and instead of having it lower in the policy, it was moved up. And I believe there was probably 3 or 4 words in another paragraph that was changed. Nothing was changed of significance. Nothing changed what the committee came up with. It's just fumbling on some words is where those changes were made. So it's very good. And one thing you did ask that I didn't answer is the committees, any committee that this board creates is not able to make a decision that binds this board. They make recommendations about what they believe is appropriate given the task that was given to them. And they take it back to this board for this board to have final say. So if a committee is created, they don't change, they don't speak for the board, they don't tie the hands of the board. The board can say we're not going to do anything, or yes, we adopt it as exactly the way it is.
And just for a little further clarification, that they do not take action for the board.
Correct.
And actually, their recommendations go to the committee that handles the subject matter, be it the COP Policy Committee
Right.
and or the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
There could be a committee that y'all would create that would report back to y'all directly, but typically it would filter back through the administration to make certain that what the committee came up with, is there any issues with their recommendation, which it shouldn't be, but it could happen, but I doubt it.
But we do not actually have a committee that sits
Correct.
and does that, right?
We do not have a committee that does that. And we
Thank you.
certainly don't have a committee that is out there looking at books and trying to pull them off the shelves.
Thank you. Sure.
And just to kind of add one more thing, I just want people to know that this committee was made up of a diverse group of people: media specialists, teachers, administration, parents, community members that are involved. So we did such a great job. It was so great to be able to be a part of that. And to help kind of facilitate that, and they just really did a wonderful job creating this. And Jay, thank you, because
You're welcome.
you truly brought all of this together, all of the questions, everybody's responses, and all of that. So kudos to you especially, because you really did a lot with this, and to Kelly Probst as well. She has put a lot of effort into this also. So thank you both very much.
Board members, any other comments or questions?
So I do have a question, and this may need to wait for when we review the policy, but just for clarification purposes,
Yes, ma'am.
I, parent A, have an issue with a book that's been assigned to my student. Originally, before this committee was identified, what would be the process? So it sounds like, just based off of your explanation, and this is why I want you to clarify it, that this committee reviews the book now. But prior to that, who was reviewing the book? And just clarify, because I might have heard you wrong.
I'd have to go back and look at the policy but to speaking off the top of my head, it would basically go back to the principal if it's a school material, or go back to the superintendent if it's a district-wide material. I don't remember there actually being a committee that would have a chance to look at it, to vet it, to be able to discuss it. So I think that seems what is more of an open process, I would just say.
Yeah, and I think that's where the confusion comes along, because there undoubtedly was a process for a book to be reviewed prior to this committee coming along. So do I understand correctly that now, if a parent, have an issue with a book, it doesn't go to the previous process,
No, ma'am.
it goes straight to this committee?
It would.
Is there not an internal process that the school follows?
If y'all vote to approve it, it does.
Okay, I just want to
Yes.
make sure we understand,
Yes.
and the public has the opportunity to understand what happens. That's where the confusion comes from.
Right, so let me break it down for an example. Is because you have to have a first read and a second read, what I believe would be presented to y'all is that tonight or Monday night, to take a temporal or a temporary approval of this policy before the second read, which would be in September. So it actually gets started for the school year. Starting of the school year, first day, you say, I don't want my child reading Grapes of Wrath. I don't think it's appropriate. You would fill out the request to be reconsidered, and that's what the parents would be going forward. Now, one other thing that's different is I did not find in the past where a parent would fill out anything as to what's being objected, why is it being objected, and have they read it, and a little bit more information. So that's something different that this committee came up with. And this committee also came up with, okay, if we have a concern from a parent, then what's that committee should put down in writing what he or she can remember, what he or she believes is appropriate or inappropriate, or whether the book should be kept or not, so that it could be reviewed either as it goes all the way up to the process. So that's something that's new.
And I may just wait for Sue to come up here and talk through the policy, but thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Jay. We'll hold the
Okay.
rest until then. Mr. Furr, any committee reports?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Walter?
The SHAC committee did meet. It's the Student Health and Advisory Committee. Just to be brief, they talked about the mental health, substance abuse, nutrition, obesity, and we also cover the COVID. I think highlight, I guess, is this triannual assessment and wellness goals that we're supposed to required to engage in every 3 years, and then we're at that 3-year cycle, so they're looking at goals to set for nutrition, physical education, and approaches to staff wellness. John Vasilis is leading that, and there's a component there that talks for stakeholder input, so if anyone has any input in those areas, you can reach out to him, and there's the website on the school. Cabarrus County Schools website has the page for that and directions for that. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Ms. Sandage?
So a few things. So on 8/23 this year, the Schools and Community Engagement Committee will meet to discuss the new K through 12 social studies curriculum, which you received a presentation on tonight. That is open to the public and will be here at the district office. It starts at 6, and we are hoping to end by 8 or before 8, but we stayed over last time, so we'll see. Also, the Cabarrus Community Recovery and Resiliency Coalition, which is a coalition that was developed by Cabarrus Health Alliance. We did not meet in July. We will meet on the 11th of August, so I will give an update once that meeting has occurred. The other thing, I just wanted to see if I can put Jonathan on the spot for a minute. We did meet with ECAC, and we don't get to hear a lot from the Exceptional Children's Department. So I think that it's important to kind of summarize that training. And I don't want to stumble over my words because my daughter is EC, but I don't know everything about EC. That training was very beneficial to not only teachers and the folks who, to me, are working with some of the most vulnerable students in our county, but it was beneficial to me as a parent to be able to see folks working together to try to understand how we communicate better and more effectively in IEP meetings. A lot of, potential litigation can come from these types of misunderstandings, and to see a group of people come together with the folks who parents are calling to complain to at the ECAC about potential wrongdoings to their kids, to see that group come and train our staff, train our parents. I just think that we need to see those things happening more so, and we also need to hear what's happening in our EC department. So, Jonathan, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I really and truly would like to hear, because you were there, myself and Carolyn, and you were there.
And I hate to cut you off, but how about you and Dr. Kopicki get together? That sounds, since we are really running behind tonight, and you maybe do a formal presentation. How does that sound?
So I think your comments are wonderful, and I appreciate the notice of what we're doing in the EC department. That's one of the things that the board has asked us to do. We are trying to do that and be more aggressive in our training. But I think it'd be appropriate, what I'll do is I'll have Angela Fitzwater speak at our meeting next week and give her an overview and a presentation of what occurred. It would be best coming from her since she put the presentation together, and I'll work with Dr. Roth as well. And then publicly next week at our meeting, during my comments, I'll have them present to you, and they'll answer all the questions you have. I think it's a great suggestion. We can do it that way.
I just wanted to note that we need to talk more about EC,
Absolutely.
and we don't do it enough.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sandage, and I'll make sure that presentation's on tap for next week.
Okay, thank you.
Also, if I could
Sure.
for a moment, I apologize. To the policy 3210, when you talked about or asked about the if a book is challenged, there is a process for the reconsideration committee. When it is challenged, there's a committee that is formed by the principal. The principal then has to put on that committee district staff, whether it be a media specialist, a librarian, a teacher. There has to be a committee that reviews the information. They then give a recommendation to the back to the principal, which would come to me, and then if they're not happy with that, they could appeal it they can appeal process it all the way up to the board. So there is a process in place for the committee to be formed and to have input from the teachers within the building and the staff within the building.
I understood that part, but based off of hearing our attorney, and I mean, this is just me thinking, so I wanted to clarify for the public, because if I'm thinking that, I'm thinking somebody else is too. Is that process going away based off of what we're saying? Is this in addition to? And I just think that we need to make sure that's very clear.
Yeah, that's the process that will be in play. That will not be going away. That's the process that's in play. Mr. White?
Right, I'm sorry, that will be in play once this board adopts it. Where we are today, that committee doesn't exist. So the idea was to have somebody, a group of people that would actually look at it and discuss it to make certain it is appropriate or it isn't appropriate and have their opinions known. But that is not what's going on today.
And again, I hope I'm making sense, Jay. Listen, so there was something happening before this policy being revised. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to say.
And that's right. And we're on the same page. Okay. What is going on right now is if a book would be concerned about today, then the principal would look at it and make that decision. But I want to confirm what that policy is to make certain we're on the same page. But going forward, that committee would look at it. Yes, ma'am.
So the new policy just kind of clarifies that language.
Okay, board members, are we ready to move forward? Yeah. 6.01, these are items for consideration for the consent agenda or the action. We will begin with the beginning teacher support plan, and we'll have Dr. Marian Bish to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for an opportunity to share something that's pretty near and dear to my heart and to my department. Each year we present to you our beginning teacher support program, and this program encompasses the support we work to provide for teachers in their first, second, and third year of teaching. It is scaffolded with the greatest support at the first year. So some of these things are things that have been going on. Some of them go back a ways, but there are also some things that are changing as we look at the climate of hiring and retaining teachers. We have made a few changes. So this is presented for your review, and it does take board approval as this is a plan that is required by the state. So first of all, these are the folks who have been involved in this from my office, myself, Dr. Williams, Megan Williams, who works with teacher support a lot, and then our school administrators, and then our lead mentors. So there is a tiered model here of the key personnel. So the first thing that happens with new teachers is that we have an orientation for them. And so I share with you that next Monday, we will begin our orientation with our beginning teachers, that is BT1s. Those who are in their first year of teaching have a 2-day orientation next Monday and Tuesday. This is done like we used to do it, like a conference. They come in, they have their opening, a keynote, and then they are divided up. And they go to sessions that are related to them and their work. So we've worked very closely with curriculum and instruction. There are sessions there for elementary, middle, high, for all content areas. There will be sessions for counselors, for EC teachers, for social workers. So we've made sure that all of our beginning staff members are covered. They will be there until about 2 o'clock. Then they go to their schools to pick up their technology and kind of touch base there. They come back on the 9th, and we continue with an all-day conference style day for them, induction, designed for first-year teachers specifically. It changes a little bit on day 3. On day 3, we have all of our new hires, all of our new certified hires will be with us, not just our first-year teachers. We have experienced teachers from other areas. And then we do the things that would apply to all new people, the curriculum instruction overview, and then also the evaluation process. And then Jay White has worked so well on a law briefing that we've determined we were going to change dramatically, so it will be very, very different. And he has been extremely gracious in working with me on how we want that to look for our new employees. It will be done twice, once for our elementary folks, targeting them, and once for secondary, targeting the things they face as new teachers and as new employees. So one of the things that we want to share is we do have some highlights, and so we have Dr. Withers, who will be sharing her Finding Your Why that she has done a couple of times, and this is, we think, very important as we bring people in. This is a theme to the culture that we're working on in our school system, and so she will share that with them. There will be some beginning teacher advice roundtables from hearing from other beginning teachers. It's really good to hear somebody who's walked those halls before, been in your shoes, and now has survived it, thrived in it, and is continuing to teach. So we also do a Cabarrus Spotlight Fair. We have a lot of sponsors for this event, and so they will be there to welcome people to Cabarrus County. We hired a lot of people who are not from Cabarrus County, and so we will look at that as our community support to show our teachers that they are in a community that cares very deeply about teaching. So we have resources for our beginning teachers. We always provide them with a couple of texts that they will go through with their mentors and with their lead groups at their schools. They have Canvas and then their beginning teacher webpage. All of these will be provided to them, and they will go over this, and they will know what all of this is as part of that 3-day orientation for them. On that 4th day, on Thursday, a week from Thursday, they will spend that day at the schools, and that's school level orientation. And we have very specific guidelines for our schools as to what should occur with those beginning teachers that day. They work with the staff, they go over school-based policies, they meet and work with their mentors, they begin to plan for their lessons, they plan for open house, they plan for classroom setup, and sometimes actually their mentors come in and actually begin to assist them in classroom setup. They begin to plan for classroom management, literally looking at how does that look in this classroom? How does that look in this building? What are the expectations of my principal? How does this work in this particular school? So that is a full day at their school site. We also provide support for what are residency teachers. Some of us might remember the old term lateral entry. These are teachers who have a degree but not a teaching license. And so they are teaching while they obtain a teaching license. These are folks who come in without having student taught. They may not have worked as an educator previously. They take some different kinds of support. And so they receive a text, they receive new employee orientation, and their orientation is much more in-depth. We are required, if anyone is a late hire after school starts, that they get 10 days of orientation prior to them coming into the classroom. So we get some of this through our new teacher orientation and some of it through those work days prior to students arriving. But if somebody is not able to get that full 10, we provide that before they start in the classroom. So here is what's new. And here is what I think I'm most proud of in the work that, I'll be really honest, has been done by Dr. Williams and Megan Williams, not related, but we've talked a lot about schools have different percentages of beginning teachers. So I may be in a school that has 1 or 2 or 3. I may be in a school that 20% of my staff are beginning teachers. That's 2 very different schools. And it takes a lot of different resources to make that work for those teachers and to support them. And so we're looking at equity, not equality. So how do we provide equitable support to schools based on their percentage of staff that are beginning teachers? So we're using some Title II funding and some personnel to directly support beginning teachers. Looks like this. So our Tier 1 schools are schools that have less than 5% beginning teachers. These are schools that would have what we would consider what we've done in the past. This is what we've always done. Every teacher has a mentor. There's a lead mentor in the school. We provide money for substitutes so that the beginning teachers can observe their peers. To me, that's one of the most powerful ways we grow, is observing our peers. So let someone go watch a master teacher. Okay? That occurs in a school that has that low percentage. Then we have tier 2 schools that have between 5 and 9%. They have the same thing. They have mentors, they have lead mentors, but we have additional training and support for those lead mentors. We take them a little further so that they understand, how do I support more people? And then we provide funding for professional development based on the individual needs of that school. Every school is different. So what are the individual needs at that school and the individual needs of each teacher? How can we use Title II funding to provide additional professional development? In Tier 3 schools, and we anticipate anywhere from 1 to 3 schools will fall into this category, more than 10% of their teachers will be beginning teachers. And this is where each of those schools will have a very individualized plan of support. There will be external support, the North Carolina New Teacher Support Network, where they have coaches from this network that we've done consistently, and those coaches come in and they will work with 30 teachers this coming year. The change is we're also going to use some of our folks, some of our retired master teachers, so that we are also now adding to the pot, adding to the number of people that can come in and support them. The lead mentors are specifically trained for their school and their context, and again, funding for professional development based on individual needs. One of the things that Dr. Williams and I had a conversation about just this week, and it was after we did this, that we also are going to do a little reorg in my office. The further you go, the more you learn, and develop 3 positions in the office. 1, to focus on year 1 teachers, 1 to focus on year 2 teachers, and 1 to focus on year 3 teachers. So that again, we're going to tier our support so that we have people in my office also who are out in the schools to become the liaisons. A teacher struggling with a lesson in math, I need to get them with the math specialist. A teacher struggling with the section on social emotional learning and our new curriculum on that, I need to get them with student services. So I want to see a bridge developing, and I think that will help us with our retention. So C&I, Sarah Reeves' department, is phenomenal at helping us with beginning teachers. They provide professional development in the content areas. And so at elementary, you see their areas. At secondary, and then Exceptional Children provides the K-12 and then the 3-year cohort model for all of our exceptional children teachers that we have in the district. So it's a strong partnership with curriculum and instruction in order for us to get the curriculum piece into this new teachers. In human resources, what we provide are the beginning teacher support program, the orientation, the lead mentor. We provide mentor training. We support them with checklists so that all of the beginning teachers have received a mentor who has a checklist to make sure we don't miss anything. We work with all of them on licensure, and then we also work with them as they move through their program review and helping us review our program to say, what are we doing that's working for you? What can we change to make it work even better? Administrators are the next area of support. The role of the administrator is to assign the mentor, collaborate with the lead mentor, and the administrators are responsible for coaching and support as well. They monitor the process and the progress and notify us if they feel a teacher's having difficulty so that we can up the coaching and up the assistance to the school. So when we talk about lead mentors, these are the 4 areas that our lead mentors facilitate. They facilitate the work of the mentors in the building. They collaborate with the teachers and the mentors. They document the progress and the issues so that we can then work together. And then they support the mentors and those beginning teachers. So that is the work that they do. When we look at the support to our school mentors, those who are working with beginning teachers, these are the things that we provide. They have weekly meetings. The teachers, meet weekly with their mentors. Their mentors work with them on classroom management, lesson planning, instructional strategies, curriculum, and best practices. So these are the areas that we hand select mentors to work with beginning teachers, and these are the areas that they will work with them on as they move into their teaching career. All of this goes on for a full 2 years, and then it begins to scaffold out during the 3rd year with someone still working with them as a buddy. They are assigned a mentor for 2 years. So this is the evaluation process. We also train our teachers on the evaluation process. This is very familiar. It looks exactly the same as it does for all of our teachers, except what you will see is that there is a peer observation, not by the mentor, but another teacher will do an observation of a beginning teacher so that we have another set of eyes, a master teacher who would come in and do a peer observation. And then the rest of this looks exactly like it is for our observations of all of our teachers. Oops, going the wrong way. These are some quotes that were given by beginning teachers as advice to other beginning teachers, and I think they're great. I love the one, go to your mentor and ask for support anytime. Give it your entire heart and have fun and be open to learning. Leaning on our mentors, don't be afraid to make mistakes, giving them permission to know that the first year's hard, the second year's hard. But by the 3rd year, you begin to find your joy in it, and Angie's smiling. So it takes time, as it does with any new journey, new profession. It takes time. And it's one thing to see it in a college textbook. It's another thing to see it in the face of 20 or 30 kids in front of you. So that's the beginning teacher support plan that we have, that we've put together with the changes. I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can. This does take board approval for the state.
Thank you, Dr. Bish. And actually, I'll ask our teacher liaison, do you have any comments that you would like to make before I open the floor for discussion?
I have been a part of this for several years, and I even had the experience of being through a program with UNCC where they had like a support for BT 1, 2, and 3. And just being able to be a mentor to teachers in our county, it's phenomenal. To be able to be there if they have questions, how to set up a classroom, how to manage classroom management is a big one, how to communicate with parents. So this is a very good program to continue to support for our teachers. Absolutely.
Thank you. And I will begin with Ms. Sandage.
So thanks for the presentation, and all of these things sound wonderful for beginning teachers. My only question is about the teachers who are mentors. I know that educators in general, staff in general, have gone through a lot over the last few years, and I just question I don't know, how do we incentivize this, or if we incentivize it, because I'm guessing this is going to take a lot from that mentor to just be able to help the beginning teacher. So I hope I made sense in that question.
You did. There was a time when there was a small stipend attached to this. The state has removed that. There is no financial, but I will tell you that it is part of a teacher's leadership growth as a teacher to become a mentor. So when we talk about evaluation and growth in our profession, one of the things we say to teachers is if you want to grow in your profession, then you begin to lead outside the classroom. And so taking on a beginning teacher, Angie's nodding, becoming a mentor is a part of growing in our own leadership. I remember a long time ago when this was offered to me. And someone came to me and said, would you take this beginning teacher? It's really an honor. And I think many of our teachers consider it an honor because principals select them. And they go to them and say, will you mentor this new one? It is time. It's generally time in the school building. Okay, they do this on planning periods or before school, right after school. It's not egregious time. It's more of a partnership and the willingness to help someone else grow in the profession. It's usually someone in their same content or grade level wherever possible, so they're already working closely together. Financially, no, but intrinsically, our teachers tell us that it's an honor and something they find a great deal of satisfaction in doing, and it is, to be really honest, it's part of, should be captured on their evaluation as part of leading in the profession to help create the next generation.
I was thinking resume builder, but thank you, that clarifies it.
Same thing, yes ma'am.
Mr. Walter?
So is a lead mentor, is that a paid position or that's not a paid position?
No, sir.
So the lead mentor position or any mentor position, these are not paid?
No, they're not. The lead mentor works with the school's group of mentors. So they are a mentor of mentors, if I could say that properly.
Right, but like you said, this is above and beyond stuff. This is, which, I would kind of think along her lines is that ought to be compensated in some way if we can do that. And I'm not sure, obviously it's not apples to apples from last year to this year, but last year it was $255,000. This year it's $72,000. How did we save $180,000?
Okay, the $72,000, let me clarify that. Last year we spent $100,000 of Title II money for the new teacher support program through the state and through our universities. UNC Charlotte does this with us. This year we chose, because we're doing a tiered model, we wanted to do more, and so we reorganized the funding in Title II, and we are writing the plan that we're going to reduce that from 100 to 72,000 out of Title II to the universities. They're going to take on 30 of our teachers for the full year and work with all 30 of them one-on-one. We are then using the other portion of the money to hire our own coaches that for those schools that may have more intense needs. And so it's not that we cut the money, we're using it differently. So
I'm sorry, it does say 72, but we're allocating more than that. It's just shown someplace else.
Yes, sir. In the Title II plan, when we bring that will show you all of it. This is just what goes to the North Carolina New Teacher Support Program, that entity from the state. That's all. But we're spending significantly more than that on the coaching and support and the professional development and the subs and everything else.
All right, and you're going to bring us the plan next week? Is that what? Okay, thank you.
The Title II plan, just Mr. Walter, the Title II plan this is a subset of the Title II plan and requires approval now. Title II plan will come to you in September, and it will require your approval.
So 2 approvals, or I think
2.
last year there was a Part A all the way through Part L, or something. Is that the same thing we're approving, or is it just the presentation?
This is just one piece of it.
Just the presentation piece. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just one question. On the training, the 3 days, do the teachers get compensated for that?
They're paid.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. And if the teacher approves of it, then by golly, why would we not? So, Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Blackwell?
So thank you for this presentation, as always. I think, so I've just heard with our beginning teacher program that we have in place right now, it's been a little, I don't know if unorganized is the right word, but different at each school in some cases where, people that have volunteered to be mentors, and then these beginning teachers are not satisfied or not kept and are leaving and going different places. And so there's been some kind of, I guess, unsatisfaction regarding the beginning teacher program. So I'm glad to see that we are doing something to hopefully increase satisfaction with that, and so that our beginning teachers are also feeling more supported, and will thrive and want to stay with us as well. So thank you for that.
And I would respond to that, and that's a really good point. I can't speak to what went on the last 9 years, but one of the things that we are looking at and are trying to codify a little better is who should be a mentor. What qualities do we need in a mentor? And then we have the checklist of the expectations for every week and a way to monitor that occurs. So I would agree with you. I've heard the same things, and that's why you're seeing some changes.
So before I move to Ms. Carpenter, I think I want to make clarification. So the mentors are trained, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the mentors go through training. The lead mentors go through lead mentor training. Lead mentors we met with them, a group of them today. They do go through training. Sometimes we have kind of fallen into perhaps someone isn't quite as experienced as we would like them to be. When you look at those tier 3 schools, we're seeing this happen. You only have so many master teachers who've been there long enough to really take on that role, and then you've got this large number of beginning teachers. This is why the need for an individualized plan, and maybe there might be mentors there, but there's also coaches that are coming in to work more in depth, because we just don't have enough bodies that are highly experienced teachers in that building. So that's part of how we're trying to get to that. But yes, they do go through training.
That was great clarification. Ms. Carpenter?
Well, Laura said the same concern that I had, and I'm glad to hear that you addressed that concern and see that we are, doing something about it. And I agree too with my other people that said, hey, if the teacher says it's good, that we need to do it. And I've heard things in the past that they wanted the help. They wanted to see us do that. So and you said you're going to get us the other part of that budget. So as long as we've got money and can do it, then we need to keep doing it. And thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter.
Ms. Adcock?
Yeah, the presentation was awesome, and again, I think it's so important to have teachers to be successful, especially when they come to a new school or starting new. So thank you for putting all that together. I did want to ask, on the August the 10th, is that the day when the new hires and the beginning teachers will meet? Would there be a possibility for board members to come and actually meet those teachers?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and that was my last thing when we finished, is you are welcome at any point that you would like to come. But Wednesday, the 10th, is when we will have everyone, the beginning teachers and other new hires. We will be at Hickory Ridge High School, and we will be in the cafeteria. And I'm going to be real honest, breakfast is at 7:45 a.m. So you are welcome to come and join us for breakfast. And we'd love to introduce you. We have a lady from the chamber coming also to invite our folks to the chamber event that night or the next week. So we would love to have you. So you were going to get an invitation. I know your inboxes are flooded, so I try not to send it too far out. But you are most welcome to come on August the 10th at Hickory Ridge High School at 7:45 a.m. and have breakfast with about 400 new employees.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, board members, everyone good for consent? I get a shake of the hands or heads? Good? Okay. All right, we're going to move. Thank you, Dr. Bish. We're going to move to 6.02, our policies for approval on first read. We'll have Ms. Burns to the podium, and policy 6220 was pulled, and 3200 and 3210. And Mr. White, thank you for joining us. We've had much discussion already, and I think we got a little bogged down with what has went on with the procedure, as Ms. Sandage stated. I think the clarification that the prior procedure was the principal did the review if there was a question, and now it's going to go to the committee. I think you guys did a good job clarifying that. I'm going to ask if there's any other comments or questions, or Mr. White, do you feel like there's anything else that needs to be discussed?
Ms. Sandage, I was looking back over the current 3200 and, 3210. So there, the principal would have a committee, but it doesn't say who's on that committee. The current, what is before you tonight, actually outlines who would be on that committee. And also, there is no stated basis why material needs to be reconsidered. And then also, the current policy does not address how that committee is going to look over it and what their decision is going to be individually and then collectively. So those are some changes that from what is going on now to what would happen in the future.
And Ms. Sandage, I'll start with you if you want to go ahead, or do you want me to go start with Ms. Adcock and give you a minute to think? Okay, Ms. Adcock, comments or questions?
I don't have any comments or questions. I served on the literacy committee, and I felt like it was really transparent, and it was really good conversations that went with a lot of diverse people. So I think what we came up with is really good.
Ms. Carpenter?
I also served on the committee, and first of all, I want to say that our chairman did an excellent job, and I just want to make a comment. Most people, and I may get slapped on my hand by my chairman when I say this, but really the reason that this committee started was because a parent brought to our attention, and I have to say, it was pornography. It was filth. A book that was in one of our libraries, and it was brought to our attention, and none of us knew anything about it. And so our superintendent did an excellent job, and we told them about it. And so we said none of us want anything like that in our library, and we didn't have a real procedure to do something about it. So our chairman, being the wonderful person she is, said we need to do something, so we decided to set up a committee, and that's why the committee was formed. It was not to ban books, which some has been put all over the internet, that our committee was to ban books, which it's not. And as I said, and I'm not just saying it to be kind, but it was to set up a procedure to make sure that things are done properly, which they did an excellent job. And Jay, again, thank you. I'm putting praise to everybody, but the committee did exactly what they were supposed to do with these policies. And so now we're going to have, if this board approves the policies that are put in place, a good, solid policy and procedure for if a parent has a problem. But again, we got the filth and the pornography out of what was first brought to the board's attention. We got that taken care of, but then now we've got a procedure in place to handle it if a parent finds something like that. But that's how this policy, how this committee was set up and why to start with. But I'm sorry but I just wanted to make the history known.
That's okay. Now that you opened that up, I'm going to probably add to that, because I think the general public doesn't really understand that this board has to legally operate off of policies and procedures, from the state level, the federal level, at local level. If we don't do that, we're outside of our own scope of work. So we have to be real careful, and it is the charge of the board chair to come up with committees and to appoint people to take care of issues that we come across that we don't have as something that the policy committee has in place, or whatever that is being discussed. So that is how it came to be, and thank you for doing that, and I appreciate that. I think it is important that we inform the viewing audience that the board attorneys are always giving us advice and making sure that we're within those guidelines, that we don't step outside of it. That is what is hard about social media, because that's people's opinions, or what their perspective is of what's going on. So that's why I think, you have done an absolutely phenomenal job with our chair of the committee and the board members that have sat on it to be so transparent at those meetings. They have just been so transparent. If you attend them and they're open to the public, you get a real insight of what it takes to vet problems and issues that the board is given and what we do to resolve them. And I appreciate that. And Mr. White, if you'd like to add to that, you may.
No, I think you hit it on the head, is that it was brought up by a parent, and then there are some questions about what this board wants to do and how this board moves forward, and I think that's what you see. And I think the committee did an excellent job. There's great discussion, great spirited thoughts about wording, so I think it was great.
Great. Very good. And Ms. Blackwell.
So I didn't get the opportunity to thank my two fellow board members who are also serving on that board with us. So I did want to make sure that I let you guys know how much I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules as well to be a part of that committee. So looking forward to good things from this committee. This is just the first step in that, but we will be setting up other meetings as we move forward. But very, very proud of what we've accomplished. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Furr?
Nothing.
Mr. Walter?
I think they're thorough. I think we've almost doubled the size of both of these documents. So there's it's a little bit more information on how processes work, and I think that's a good thing. But since they are substantial, I'd like to see them on action for next week.
Ms. Sandage?
So my questions generally are just to clarify, and I hope that you guys can respect that. We all get a lot of emails and questions, and I think it's really important that we address those things head on before they become real significant issues. I was able to be a part of the policy committee discussion on these policies. I think it was very healthy. There was a lot of communication about what the committee, the Literature and Supplemental Material, I hope I'm saying that right, committee discussed, and we were able to dissect that. We actually put it on additional day for discussion so that we gave this policy the review it deserved because of how it had been brought to the committee. So I don't have any specific issues with the policy, and I agree with Board Member Walter about getting it on action. The other thing I'll say too, and to Board Member Carpenter's point, is that we're expected a lot of the times to know everything because we are elected officials, and we're seen almost, I say it a lot of times, as superheroes. We're just average, everyday people, so we don't know a lot of the things that people expect us to know until you tell us. And then at that point, we can do something about it. But give us the opportunity to have a conversation about it and then actually try to do something together to work towards these issues as opposed to the division. So I'll just say that, and I'll close on that.
Thank you. And I'm just going to take a moment to recognize Dr. Kopicki and his work, and, of course, his staff that work so diligently with us. You never miss a moment, because we do get burned up with emails and situations, and they do have to be vetted. And you're actually on it, from the beginning of that until it's completely resolved, and we really appreciate your work. Yeah, absolutely. All right, board members, so I'm hearing that policies 3200 and 3210 should go on the action agenda for next Monday night. All good? Okay. I heard that
earlier about first
Yes.
read and temporary review, because it does involve a matter that would come before the school system.
So I was going to actually do that next Monday night,
ma'am.
but if that needs to be done tonight,
No,
a
we can
little
do it
bit, I
next
felt like
week.
it was okay. Okay.
Next
So are
week's
you good?
So it would be on for first read and temporary
Temporary
approval.
Yes. Okay. And next Monday night is good?
Yes.
Jonathan? Okay, great. All right, then we will move to 6.03, policies for approval on second read. Policy 3102, online instruction, 4240-7312, child abuse reports and related threats to child safety, 4260, student sex offenders, 4400, attendance, Policy 5021-6138-7268, emergency use of naloxone. Policy 5240, advertising in schools. Policy 7810, evaluation of licensed employees. And Policy 7815, evaluation of non-licensed employees. Ms. Burns, have you had any comments or questions from board members?
No, no one has contacted me.
Okay, I will begin the discussion and open the floor and start with Ms. Sandage. Any comments or questions?
None.
Mr. Walter?
After reading 3210, I had one question or one comment on 4240. We have a clause here that says on 3210, the principal must consult with the board attorney on issues related to constitutional or other legal rights. There is nothing in this other policy that requires any employee to contact the attorney or even the superintendent except in one occasion. I think we need to add some type of a clause in there or have the committee look at that to get the attorney and the superintendent or designee involved.
Can you explain your comment a little more, please?
This revolves around a requirement for our staff to report suspected abuse or neglect or maltreatment or a bunch of other things. There's 3 different reporting types of required reporting. It has to do with sex trafficking and other abused children and who to report to what. And then one that's required about a child care facility or a staff member mistreating at a child care facility. There's different reporting requirements in those cases. There's different things and there's a clause in here that says our staff must cooperate with state and local agencies, and they have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things. In all reality, they're going to contact the superintendent, but it doesn't say so. But it does say that if we don't do these things, reports and disciplinary action being brought against the employee by the school district and up into dismissal and termination, that type of thing. So it really, to me, ought to be in here that, hey, there should be a requirement that the attorney is contacted prior to any of this stuff or in part of which. And then, so that's, I would ask that the the policy committee review that again.
I can speak to that a little, but either Mr. White or Mr. Vogel are welcome to. This policy is based on law, and they tell us who has to report what and how and to whom. So I'm not sure who you feel was left
And I have
out
no
of
objection to that. I think we should, but I do think we may have questions, we may have issues. The superintendent doesn't say you have to notify the superintendent if you notify the county child welfare agency. So I do think that in this case, again, I'm not going to go into it in a lot of detail, but it seems to me that it would make sense that a clause like that we have in 3210 be added to this policy.
Yes.
Are you, and I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the superintendent should be notified if a teacher as a mandated reporter is making a report. Should that go past just the teacher making the report? Is that what you're asking?
I'm saying, yeah, if a staff member is making a report,
right? Okay.
That our superintendent ought to be advised of it and our attorney should be advised of it.
There's no legal requirement of informing the superintendent, and there is no legal requirement of informing the attorney. It is based on their position. They are a mandatory reporter, so they would have to report it to the department. And I don't know, in my mind, I've not been in the classroom to see how it happens. My suspicion is the teacher probably would talk to the counselor or talk to Mrs. Jewell, and that would be the reporting mechanism that's taken care of.
The reporting mechanism is talk to the principal, okay. I think, is what it is, if we read the policy.
But legally, there is no requirement to contact the superintendent and or the...
Right, but as a school board and we set policy, if that's something we want to protect our employees with, we would put something like that in there, because they'd have to follow policy.
When you're saying protect, what I'm not, this may be something that we should talk.
I tell you what, let's do. let's call the discussion on this one, and let's just go ahead and pull this policy, and we need to vet that a little bit more. I see lots of heads shaking yes and no, and so let's go ahead and pull this one. Okay, so 4240 and 7312. I'm going to ask that we pull that.
Ms. Grimsley?
Yes.
This is not one.
I would like to have Ms. Jewell or Mr. Basleese or one of them speak to this. We do have some changes that are fairly important to have in place before school starts.
Okay.
So I would respectfully ask if we could still look at these changes
For next Monday night?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then, get that information to
I am
Mr.
fine
Walter.
with that. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I mean, I just
Well,
see an opportunity to protect the board.
We just have got to, we're spending a lot of time on doing some of these things at the last minute. And I know that throws, the staff a huge curve. And I get it when there's things that's just picked up on at the last minute, but this is something that really needs to be spent a little bit of time on with staff. Sure, absolutely.
Well, I think this policy is pretty cut and dry and clear. It says child abuse reports and related threats to child safety. No disrespect to any staff member. We're protecting children. And we're mandated reporters. This is pretty cut and dry. There's not a whole lot of debate on this. This is the law. So I would suggest that you keep this on the agenda. We put this up for the vote next week. We're making an action item, and if you don't want to vote for it, don't vote for it. But this is cut and dry. This is a mandated report that you have to have in place. There's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts. Any employee can contact their principal, can contact the guidance counselor, can contact the superintendent, and we can hook them up with any legal advice they may need. But this is not a debatable situation. This is a child abuse report, related threats to child safety. We're talking about children here. Again, no disrespect to adults, but that's not why this exists. This has to be put into place and passed, and it's following the law.
Well, let me be clear. We do have a policy, and they are mandated to follow the law. That's all.
Well, I think
there's no changes to that.
We're splitting hairs on this,
that
Rob.
argument.
This should be put on. If you want to have an action item and not vote for it, that's fine. But I say put it on as an action item and vote it. It's pretty cut and dry.
Okay.
And again, we're starting school in a couple of weeks. I mean, this isn't one where we want to be debating. This is a straight ahead. This is what it has to be.
Okay, I think the clarification was when they make anonymous reports or whatever, that should be able to happen, and if they don't feel comfortable calling or send it to somebody else. I think that starts a whole big deal of us changing board policy on what they can and can't do, and then they may not do anything. So I get that piece, and it is the law. We don't have a choice.
Right.
So, right, okay. So let's do this. Let's just put that one on action, and we'll have Ms. Jewell here Monday night. Or, Rob, if you want to put that in an email and send that back out so that we're real clear on what you were trying to state, and then we'll all have documentation and a resolution.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so any other comments or questions? Mr. Furr? On policies for second read. Ms. Blackwell?
No questions.
Ms. Carpenter? No. Ms. Adcock?
None.
Okay, with the exception of 4240-7312, we will put those on the consent agenda. Is that all good with everyone? And that one being placed on action?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move to 6.04, and we have the Concord High School Culinary Arts Teaching Kitchen renovation, and we'll have Mr. Chuck Taylor to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, board members. So tonight I want to bring before you the bid for approval, consideration for the Concord High School Culinary Arts Kitchen renovation. This project was voted for and approved by the board last year. It was funded by the county. The monies are there. We had 3 bidders. We met all the requirements of legal bidding, and I desperately need to move forward on this. I would even ask that you suspend the rules tonight and vote on it for me tonight so I can get started tomorrow.
Okay, I will open up the floor for discussion, and I'll begin with Ms. Adcock. Comments or questions?
I don't have any comments or questions.
Ms. Carpenter?
Did it go over, under? How much do we have in there, Chuck?
Actually, we have a little bit over at this point.
We do?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Ms. Blackwell?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Furr? Mr. Walter?
Okay, I did send you some questions, and I do appreciate the response. The item here on the agenda said that we have a budget of $150,000, and the cost of this thing is going to be $608,000. So, can you go over again where we're going to find where the funds for the difference?
I'll be more than happy to do that. Matter of fact, I'd love to do that. We just finished our first repaving of an entire school at Mount Pleasant High School. Actually, we just finished it at Concord Middle School as well. But because we had favorable bidding on that, we actually had 6 bidders for that one, which is extreme at this point. We had 9 for that one roof project we talked about a few weeks ago. We were able to get the bid down for a change. You know, obviously we've had a lot of problems with bids, a lot of things running over cost. But we were able to save $437,000 in that money. We also have approximately $140,000 left over in some access controls. So we had a little bit of luck with the paving. We turned around and we had some innovation with the access controls because so many years have passed since we put those on the list. Everybody knows that big list, right? The cost and the technology has advanced and created a much better product at a lower cost. So we actually come in almost 2/3 under on those access controls. Originally, we had thought we'd like to go back and use that for additional access controls, but this culinary arts program is something that not only I'm passionate about, but many other staff are passionate about. It's at the right place, it has the right students, the right student body. It's vital to this community. It's a direct feeder to the hospitality industry, just as I put in your notes. This is the right thing to do, and I'm here to do battle to make sure you do it.
Thank you.
I don't think we're battling. We just want to make sure we can pay for it. That's all. And then by getting it done, you're trying to get this done by the school year, or what is the process? What is the time period on this?
So it's vital that I get all of the plumbing. I'm going to have to rip the entire floor out of the section. It's actually the old auto mechanic shop. That's what it was originally in Concord High School. They've used it for several other things over the years. We've already done some demos, some of the plumbing in-house to try to cut that cost. But I'm going to have to rip the entire floors out. By code now, because it's technically a restaurant and serving food, I have to have grease traps. That's quite expensive. A lot of that's what's driving this. Labor shortages are driving this. Materials are driving this. There's HVAC involved. Because we're going from gas to electric equipment, I have to put in a new service. There's not enough power in that building now. We have issues whenever we upgrade technology just for TVs because there's not enough power there. I have to create almost an entirely new power grid in there just for this culinary arts. But this program is so vital and so important, it has to happen. So I'm not leaving here until you guys vote for it and approve it.
Yeah, again, but what is the? Is it going to get done by the beginning of the school year, or is it not? Or what is the timetable on the project?
That plumbing will be done by the beginning of the school year. We're going to get it as close as we can, but the truth is materials and lead times and supply chain are going to dictate that.
So what is your estimate on when the kids can go in there and use?
Kids will go in there first day. Their capabilities will be limited until we finish it.
So we're doing construction and the kids are in there, or is that, how does that work? Well, anyway, I don't want to go any further, but
I'll be happy to answer that.
As long as it's paid for, I'm good with that, so thank you.
Ms. Sandage?
So I'm a little scared to ask questions right now. No, just kidding. So just a, I guess, question. I'm all for it. I'm gonna vote yes. But will this allow for them to like cook for us, like for example our meals and stuff like that? I'm just curious, so we can save some money and give them some work. And
Dr. Auerbach is here. We discussed that earlier. There will be a surcharge for board members.
So with just a little history.
But yeah, I just want to make sure, like, what does this mean for our community? You know, what does this mean for our students? Are we saying that this is a real live kitchen that's going to allow for them to cater and, you know, teach our kids to be?
Ma'am, this will be a full-blown kitchen.
That's what I need to
hear. It's going to produce chefs.
So we will be asking them to give us some food. Got it.
I'm sorry, I have to have a little bit of fun with you guys.
That's what I was trying to do too, because you were so serious up there, honey.
Ms.
I'm good
Sanders,
at
for
that.
some history, when this was at Hickory Ridge High School, when we first opened that, they actually did come in and cook for the board meeting, so, you know.
I'm looking forward to it, just so y'all know.
Dr. Albert, the pressure's on you. Okay, so board members, hearing that, are you willing for us to amend the agenda to move for an approval tonight?
I would make a motion to amend the agenda.
Can you key up, please, Ms. Carpenter?
Yes,
That would be
ma'am.
awesome.
I could. I would make a motion to amend the agenda. Well, we have to amend the agenda first. And if I can get a second on that.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to add approval for the Concord High School Culinary Arts Teaching Kitchen renovation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. Now I'll take the motion for approval.
I would make a motion. Well, it looks like we would need to do $608,868. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
For the renovation of the Concord High Culinary Arts Teaching Kitchen renovation.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Carpenter and Mr. Taylor. Can we do a not to exceed, or do we need, is that dollar figure exact?
Would that be a good dollar?
That is exact.
Exact, okay.
Okay.
Are you good?
I'm
Okay.
good with that.
Motion by Ms. Carpenter, second by Ms. Sandage, for the approval of the Concord High School Culinary Arts Teaching Kitchen renovation not to exceed the amount of $608,868. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Herndon, I'll need a check in the morning.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, we will move to 6.05, the school nutrition program meal prices, and we will ask Ms. Stephanie Almond to the podium, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I won't keep y'all long. We just had, let me get to the right page. So at the last meeting, there were some suggestions of maybe trying a different approach for how we calculated this, with an increase of 10 cents for each meal just across the board to make it simple. So I've calculated that, and I believe you received a copy of this slide last week. To date, I haven't received any questions, but I'll be glad to answer whatever you have.
Okay, and I'm going to open the floor for discussion, and we'll begin with Ms. Sandage. Comments or questions?
I don't have any.
Mr. Walter.
Do we have any revenue projections?
Yes, we do. I believe compared to the previously approved prices, somewhere in the neighborhood of an additional $225,000.
Mr. Furr.
I have no questions, but I got a suggestion to you presenters. If you didn't get any questions, assume there's not any and just move on.
Ms. Blackwell.
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Carpenter.
I'm curious, how many free lunch applications have you gotten so far?
I don't have a count on how many we've gotten so far, but we have processed everything that we've gotten to date, and we have also received a number of direct certifications, which is when we process the students who qualify without having to fill out a form. So we've probably actually got the majority of those that we'll get this year. They usually come in July and August, but I can get you that number tomorrow if you like.
And I'm curious to know, because I know that there has been a big push in petitions being sent to Washington to ask them to continue the waiver that had been signed, to say, please continue the waiver for at least another year to let all students go free of charge. Do you know what the status of that is?
At this point, they are still at the place they were before. I'll be sending you all in the coming days, probably before the end of the week, a link to some information on that, so you can send some information to Washington if you care to do so. But at this point, it's still a bill that is not gone anywhere yet, unless they did something in the last little bit. So I hope they approve that as well, but to this point, I haven't seen it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Adcock.
Well, thank you very much for entertaining our ideas and making that happen, and we really appreciate all the hard work you put into what you do every day.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, can I get a consensus on sending this to the consent agenda for the approval as presented?
I feel that needs to be action.
You want action? Board members?
I think action would be better.
Okay. We will move that to the action agenda for next Monday. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And that concludes our work session for tonight. And I will ask for a motion that the board convene in closed session to consult with an attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-318 11A3, and to consider confidential personnel matters pursuant to General Statute 143-318 11A6.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Adcock, a second by Ms. Carpenter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, and we will say goodnight to our viewing audience, and we will see you next Monday, August the 8th, at our regular scheduled business meeting. Good night.